Hi folks, Marty here, and today we're going to take a look at how to do a wee snow scene with silver birch trees in it. So if you can just get your pens and pencils ready, and I'm going to sketch in using a 2B pencil, but you could use whatever pencil you have, but I do prefer the softer lead. Okay, so I'm just going to put the horizon in as normal. I'm thinking I would normally do the third up from the bottom or the third down from the top. But on this one, I think I might just do it a little bit above center, and then I'll just do the horizon like that. So I want to create a bit of a snowbank, and what I'll do is I'll drop a wee house in here, maybe a wee cottage. Just like that, and give it a wee doorway, and a couple of wee windows, and then maybe have the chimney up here. Okay, and then behind it, I'm going to have maybe some bushes and so on. I like to do this just to help frame the house. And maybe we could have some peat stacked up against the outside here. It's going to have snow on it, so we'll have to look at how we'll do that when we get to it. Okay. And what I want to do in here, I want to have some distant trees and so on. So that's just a wee indicator for me, just to remind me where I'm going. And what we'll do is we'll have maybe a wee bit of a path coming from the cottage just to draw the eye. And then I think here we'll maybe have one of the trees coming up here. And then we'll have another one maybe here. Come up that way. And then maybe with one fall this way. I mean, it's just to give me an idea. I mean, this will probably change anyway when I get into it. So we'll do this, just the base of those trees there where it kind of goes into the ground. Okay. And then maybe have one here. A big one here. Okay, I'm got to think about where the sun's coming from. I think I'll have the sun coming from here. So what I'm doing is I'm just drawing a wee picture here, and that's to remind me where the shadows are going to fall. So I think we'll have the shadows falling this way here. And then one across the path. Maybe that way there. Okay. And then, of course, in the foreground, you could put little bushes and so on, okay? Okay, so just something very simple like that. And do the front of that chimney there. And maybe a wee chimney pot there. And then this is where the under side of the roof will be. So put a bit of shadow on here and a bit on here as well. Okay, we'll keep it very simple, and maybe drop a wee bush in around here, and then a bit of variation round about here. So I'm just giving myself some some wee indicators. So it's a case of remembering this is where your source of light's coming from. It's here, okay? Or in this case here, it's probably more, I mean, if the sun was over here, then you're just following the line of the shadow to it. So because it's winter, actually, I think, you got to think about these things when you're going. So I'll keep it actually lower. So it's lower in the sky, but I don't want it to be below any trees here. So maybe in here. So when I'm doing a painting, I'm thinking all these things through as I'm going and working them out on paper. Obviously, it's good to do a wee sketch of what you're going to paint beforehand. Take a lot of the mistakes and messing around out of it. Okay. I'm thinking about this hill, how that's gonna come here. Okay, so I'm just fixing that there a wee bit. So this hill's going to come down here, and this path's going to disappear up that way there. Maybe put a wee bush in here, something in here. Okay, so that's our basic sketch. Kind of looking at that house a wee bit there, and don't worry about it being a bit wonky, just adds a wee bit of character here and there. So I'm gonna just bring that bank down to about there. Maybe have a couple of kids. They could be maybe building a snowman. A couple of wee characters. Maybe front a wee dog here. Remember, it's where your shadows are coming from again. Okay, so that's that. That's the sketch. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to think about how I'm going to tackle this. There's a few different ways of tackling it. One is you could mask these trees in, do all your painting and then rub it off and then work on them. Or else you could put the trees in now and then, do your sky around them without going over them. So what I think I'll do is maybe drop the sky in, give it a bit of a coat. I would normally do my skies wet into wet, but if you want a bit more control in what you're doing, this is another way, another approach to it. And what I'll do is I'll just actually paint over where I'm going to put those trees in. So it'll probably be a bit darker by the time I get up there anyway. So that's cobalt blue, and then what I'm doing, I'm throwing in a wee drop of ultramarine blue, just to darken it up a wee bit. And what I'll do is some of my yellow ochre with a wee bit of light red into it. And that'll do for the clouds. Don't be afraid to let that come up and just hit that blue here and there, okay? So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to turn this picture upside down. And I'm going to mix up a nice kind of wintry green looking colour. So you've got your blue and a wee bit of, put a wee bit of yellow into it there. Okay, now it's still a bit too summery looking for my liking. So at this stage you could put a wee hint of one of your browns into it. And then a wee bit more blue there. And you're kind of just working with it until you get a colour that you're happy with. So this is going to be some distant trees. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop it in around that horizon line there. I'm going to try and lift some of that paint out where those silver birches are meant to be, like this. So this is just a damp brush with hardly any water in it. And then maybe up here like that. And then like that. This will just make it a wee bit easier when we start putting those silver birch in. Could do with it being a wee bit darker, I think. So more of that ultramarine and a wee bit of burnt sienna or whatever brown you happen to have there. Okay, and then I'm going to go a wee bit darker into the base of those trees in the background, just to give the impression that there's different layers of trees in there. Okay, and I'm going to turn it up the other way to see what I'm doing. Okay. And then this is your chance just to fix anything that's went wrong on you. I'm just making that paint a wee bit more creamy. And I'm just going to give the impression that there's big old fir trees or whatever there. But just make sure your paint's nice and thick in consistency there. And then any paint that's pooling around the bottom there, just touch it with the brush. Okay, so it's these areas here that you want to make sure you're not getting too much water pooling on you. See there? Okay, so what I'm going to do here is get a dry brush. When I say dry, I mean slightly damp, and I'm going to try and lift some of that off here. And then I'm just using a wee tissue, a rag or whatever, just to help me absorb some of that water or paint. soften those edges because you don't want them to give you problems later on. Okay, I'm happy enough with that. Let me just fix this edge here, but make it look like they have a bit of an overhang. There's a wee bit up here, it looks a wee bit kind of messy, so I'll try and do something with that as well. Okay, so I'm just going to dry that off now. So that's that dried off. So what we'll do now is we'll think about the next part we want to work on. I don't really want to do much more to this here. And if I start doing the trees here, then it's going to give us some problems when we're trying to put the banks in and indicating that there's snow there. So what I think I'll do is I'll work on the banks first, just the way we did on the trees, and then we'll do the trees a bit later. Okay, so because we're working on snow now, you'll want a good clean paint well. So when I'm doing snow, just in case of remembering that snow's not normally white, it's reflecting whatever's around it. And, you know, you can use cool colors or you can use it slightly warmed up. So I'm going to mix up some of my cobalt blue. I'm going to put a wee touch of alizarin crimson into it. So it'll give me a bit of a purpley color. And then what I'll do is I'll put more of a cooler color over here. Again, cobalt blue. Okay. Right, so we want to give the indication that the hill is running down the way. So just going to paint on through those trees there. And then wee bits like this. So it's almost as if you're ignoring the trees. I'll start to add a wee bit of that alizarin into it, just for a wee bit of variety and variation. And I'll just bring it on across the path like this here. And then a wee bit more into your blue. Work on the other side. That's where the paths would, or the two banks would merge. Okay, so what I like to do down the bottom of my pictures is frame them, so to speak, with a bit of colour, as if something's, you could almost make it look like there's something, just a big shadow just falling across the path like that there. If you want, you can flick some water on it, and what that does, it gives it a bit of texture, creates a bit of cauliflower and so on. Wee bit of darker colour. It's all about adding a wee bit of texture and interest to the thing. Okay. So what we'll do now is we'll look for any hard edges. So we're going into this with a clean brush. If there's anything that's too hard and you want to soften it up, now's the time to do that. And what you can also do is get a tissue and you can drag out bits like that there. It could be maybe bits where the light is breaking through the trees. Okay, I think I'll work with that. So the next bit I'll do is when I'm doing the trees, they will cast shadows, and that's when it all gets a wee bit interesting. So what I want to do is again, clean brush, and I want to just lift some of that off where the trees are going to go. Sometimes you just got to work it in a wee bit like that. But don't worry, you don't have to be too fussy about this, because those silver birch, when they go on, they will be quite dark down at the roots. So what I want to do while that's all still a little damp there, I want to mix up my shadow color. It's pretty similar to what we did there for the banks there, but it's a bit darker. I'll put a wee drop of yellow ochre in there too, and that helps to tone it down a wee bit. What I'm going to do is, where this house is, I want to give a wee bit of shadow around that house area there. Maybe drop a wee bit down here. And then just soften that up a wee bit so it's not too dark looking. Of course, if you want to make something like it's more in the distance, just soften it up like that there. Okay, I'm going to dry that off. I think I'll work with that. Okay, so at this point, what I'm going to do now is start working on those silver birch trees. So what I'm going to do is, I've mixed up some paint on here, and you want it pretty strong. So you're taking some of your darkest colors, your ultramarines, and maybe a brown or a black. If you have any kind of black paint, that's very useful here. And then I've mixed up this kind of bluey dark color here, so that'll give me a wee bit of variation. So what you can do is you can paint it onto your card, okay, like this here. Just drop it on here and there. Obviously, the thicker you get that, the more it will work for you. So what you can do is then just drag it across your tree, where you want to put your tree. Okay, obviously the thicker you get this paint, the better it will work for you. I'm just going to go maybe straight into some of those darks. And then I'll maybe have a go at this one over here. Yeah, that works a lot better. So it's a wee bit of experimentation, really, you know. Okay, I find it more helpful not to drag it too heavy. You're just kind of skimming the surface. That'll give you a better effect. See, like that there, just not too heavy. I'll do this big tree across the front here. Just don't mind it being a bit darker down the bottom of that tree. So just very gently. And then I'll do this one at the side here. Okay, So if you think that's just too dark for you, while it's still wet, just get yourself a bit of tissue and just, you know, go and see if you can lift some of it off again like that there. It just helps to break it up a wee bit. Okay. So what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to, the bottom of the tree, where it meets the ground, I'm going to just kind of fill that in a wee bit. Make it look like it's actually coming out of that. But it's remembering that this is a snow scene, so make it look like the snow has been kind of blown up against it. And you can also drag your brush across it like that. Get my shadow color, if you remember from earlier, cobalt and a wee bit of alizarin. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go into it like this. If you remember when we've done the shadows earlier, I'm just going to just touch the base of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some more of that and I'm going to give the impression that there's little bits of that bank. The trick here is to try and keep it all very hit and miss, not a solid line or perfect dots across it or anything like that. So got a good shaky hand, that'll kind of does help. And what I'll maybe do is just do a wee bit of sputter here and there. I'm going to make up some more of that shadow color. Remember, cobalt blue, a wee touch of alizarin crimson, and a wee bit of yellow ochre. It's just a case of playing with the ratios of that until you get something that you're happy with. Let me take it a bit more towards the blue end of it. And what you can do is you can give the impression that there's other trees and stuff across the path here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is some of that blue colour, I wouldn't mind putting a bit of that in there just to create a wee bit of variation in those trees, so they're not just so black and white looking. And at this stage, if you get your rigger, it's your long haired brush there, and then pull out a few wee branches here and there. And I always pull those out as little dark bits at the side here. So just remember and get that angle on the brush. So at the side of the tree, if you're going to pull a branch out there, just put a wee bit of colour here, and then just pull it out of that. I'll come back to this in a bit. What I want to do is quickly dry this off and then tackle this mid section here. So I'm looking at that little cottage there, and obviously it has snow on the roof. So what we want to do is tackle the brick part itself. Obviously the sun's coming from this direction here, so this is going to be in shadow. So I'll probably put a nice light blue in here, and then well, you could, if you want it to look like there's a bit of sun in this, you could give it a wee bit of touch of color and then start dropping in the doors and the windows, and then building this roof up with a bit of shadow on the underside of the roof, and then start working on this middle distance here where you have the children's playing with a snowman, and that's your opportunity to get a little bit of color into the scene. First up, I will work with the cottage itself. So I got a wee bit of my yellow ochre just to make it look like there's a bit of light shine on that, and maybe put a wee bit of light red in it. If you want this nice and light, okay, and you're kind of painting around where those silver birch are. So, and then I'm going to grab some of my shadow color for the side part. I think that's got a little bit muddy on me with the dark colors I was using, so I'm going to just tidy that up a wee bit and maybe mix up a fresh batch of that. So that's the cobalt, wee hint of alizarin, like that. And you can even drop a wee bit of it in there just to break up that blocky color. You don't want to be putting the same block color in. You want to give it a wee bit of variation. Okay, it's starting to work for me. So what I'm going to do is quickly dry it off so as I can start working on the shadow around that. Okay, so back into my shadow color, you touch that blue there. And I'll just do down the side here. And then this is where the kind of the roof would bend, so to speak. Make sure you just soften up any hard edges. Okay, and I will dry that off again. At this stage, I'm going to just do a wee bit of detail around that cottage. A wee bit of a reddy brown door. So if you haven't already made up red, just put a wee drop of brown into it. It takes the girlishness out of it. And maybe let's see how that works there for us. Okay. And then I'll do the windows a darker color. All right. And I'll dry that off. So it's the shadow that's going to make this stand out. So I just want to make it a wee bit stronger there this time. The reason why I use cobalt blue and alizarin is because they're good translucent color. So I'm just looking at that. I think is that strong enough a shadow? So a wee bit more of that. And then on the side of the house, I'll put a wee bit of shadow here. And then maybe a wee bit of shadow down that side of that door here. And then a bit of shadow down where that say that chimney's going to be. Okay, so what I want to do now is get some of that darker color and put a wee bit of brown into it. And I want this to look like it's peat stacks beside the house, as they would have done in those days. Kept it all nearby for the winter, so they didn't have to travel too far. Okay, and I can put some snow on the top of it. You can do it that way. You can paint white on it later on, or else you can go into it with your tissue now, actually, and just dab out some of it. Like that. Just to give it a wee bit of variety going on there. Okay, now I'm looking at this white part behind me here. And what I'll do is I'll take a bit of that colour, but water it down as best I can. So it'll not look right. And then I'll just take the brightness out of it a wee bit, that hill. And what you can do here is got a wee bit of yellow into that there. Put a few wee trees and so on, or bushes behind here. And it all helps to frame that house. A wee bit of darker stuff down the bottom there. Put a bit round here. Give it a wee dry off. So to make this snowman stand out, we're going to have to put some nice clear translucent shadows down the side that's in the shade, the opposite of the side where the sun's hitting. So again, cobalt blue, a bit of alizarin crimson, and then we're just going to try and create that shape down the side. And we could go ahead and just drag out the shadow there. We can give him a scarf and do him up in a minute. Okay, so what a nice kind of orangey red, I think, here. And then we'll give that wee boy a wee red jacket or jumper. With a matching hat. Give him some legs. Give him a wee friend here. And don't forget the wee dog. So it's all about little impressions. Okay, so what I'm going to do is give our snowman a wee scarf there. And maybe give him a hat. Okay, so I'm going to dry that off now. Okay, so I'll give him a wee bit of a shadow. Those little characters here. Trying to just mess about with that colour ratio until you get something that's suitable. Trying not to get it too dark and not too light. And just touch them in like that. Give that snowman a wee bit more of a just soften up where it meets the shadow I put down originally. And like that. Okay. I think what I'll do is I'll put some wee touches in the foreground here. Just remember, less is more, you know, just kind of don't overdo this. A wee bit of sputter here and there. All right, at this stage, we're going to do a little bit of sputtering technique. Okay, so I'm using a 12, so something with a reasonably long brush, and then I'm going to also use a toothbrush for some finer work if I need it. So I'm going to use my gouache for this. Okay. And this is all about getting the right kind of quantity in your mix. Quantity of water, that is. Okay. I think I'll just use this wee spritzer just to... So trying to get it not so it's not too runny, but not too thick either. And then just wee drops here and there. Don't be overdoing it. I'll put my hand in front of me just to protect any equipment or anything precious that you have. And make sure before you do this, you get your partner's permission, because it does get a bit messy. And I don't want anybody getting banned from the kitchen table. Will they not be able to paint anymore? Or at least use this in their snow scenes. So just wee bits here and there. Don't overdo it, okay? I'm just holding it like this here. And then I'm using my finger just to flick against it. Okay, that was a wee bit much, that one there. I wasn't concentrating on showing you the technique. So I'm going to quickly get that off with a tissue. And then back into my paint again. So I'm just using my hand here just to block anything that I don't want paint on. Okay. Just make sure you step back from it, so to speak, and you know, have a look at what you're doing, making sure you're not going overboard with it. Okay, I think that's enough of that technique. What I want to do, keep that paint handy. I'm going to come back to it in a wee minute. I want to do some more branches on those trees there. What I'll do is I'll just dry that off a wee second. So I'm just going into my darker colours here. And I'm just pulling out some more wee branches. The reason why I didn't do all the branches earlier on is because I want to work on that little cottage and I didn't want anything give me complications at this stage. So it's just a wee bit of detailing we're doing here. Just going to switch to a finer rigger. And down this part here where the base of the tree are, I'm just going to pull up some wee twigs and branches and so on. I'll just dry that off now. So at this stage, what I want to do is just get my rigger and then maybe put some snow in where the branches would meet the tree, just like that, as if it's been gathering. And then switch to my finer brush. It's always good to try and clean these brushes as you go. And then in this case, I just maybe trying to paint some wee bits of snow on top of those branches without obscuring the branch completely. And you can even paint a few wee branches in with the white. And then remember that chimney over there, so put a wee drop of snow on the top of that. And then maybe go down the front of it as if the Snow's created a bit of a blizzard. You can even put a wee drop of snow on the top of that. Nice switch brush here. And just kind of round that off a little bit there. So what you could do is, if you're careful, you can kind of script some snow onto those trees, like that, like that. And I'll put some on here as well. Okay, I think that's enough. I think that's me. The only thing left now is to pop the signature on. And what you could probably do here actually is let's have a wee bit of interest in here. This foreground. I'll give it a try. Okay, at this stage, we're just ready for the big reveal. So, my favorite part. And there you have it. A wee snow scene with a wee cottage and a bit of the old snow spotter technique. So have a wee go at that and practice that painting upside down part for the trees and just see what kind of an effect you can get with that. And try not to go too overboard with the spotter technique. And until next week, keep painting and I'll see you soon.